Hello, and welcome to Healthy California podcast. My name is Linda Brown, and I am the host of Healthy California, where my goal is to help educate you on your daily choices so we all can become healthy. I believe you, your family, your neighbor, and your community are all looking for better ways and simple ways to return to being healthy. Many of you have health issues or have family that's going through tough times that seemingly have no answers. It's frustrating. There are questions about health, environment, foods, exercise, and lifestyle, and it can be all overwhelming. And who do you believe? And where's the science behind it? This podcast will unravel the mystery behind being unhealthy and talk about little things that we can do in our lives to make a positive change in our health from all angles. So to be healthy, we need to have physical health, mental health, environmental health, financial and social health, and of course, spiritual health. Let's answer some of these questions to get healthy. What good is just listening to a podcast? I will give you resources as well, ways to take steps and make positive changes in your life to becoming healthy. This is a journey, not an assignment, so be kind to yourself. Okay, welcome back, California. Linda Brown here. This week I am talking about gluten, and it seems like, gluten is over talked about, but I want to tell you the reason why it's important. So should you be gluten-free? Let's find out. First of all, what is gluten? Gluten is a protein that comes from the endosperm of a wheat kernel. And not just wheat, there's other grains that it comes from as well. But wheat kernel in the U.S. has been modified to have a lot of gluten in it. So gluten it's in the endosperm, and it's a protein, and it's natural. However, we just make so much of it in the way our wheat is modified. We use it because it makes our food elastic and stretchy and sticky. Like in the flour, if you notice flour, when we make pizzas or pastas, we stretch it out, we knead it, and that's because of the gluten. So you can't do that to almond flour because almond flour doesn't have gluten in it unless it's added. So we need it. But we also find it in places like sauces and dressings because it's a binder so that the ingredients in the sauce don't separate. In salad dressing, you can find salad dressing that you have to shake because the oil and the vinegar separate. And then there are some salad dressings that you don't have to shake. Everything's already mixed and it stays mixed because oftentimes there's gluten in there to keep it as a binder. In addition to a thickener. Gluten is everywhere. If you look at the ingredients, often you'll find gluten in there. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to be gluten-free. You'll also find it in places like cosmetics and medications and supplements because, again, it's a filler. So why should you care? Why should you be concerned about gluten? Many times people don't know they have a sensitivity because they don't feel their digestive system suffering. I hear that often. Well, my stomach is fine. I don't have any gluten problems. And that's not necessarily true because gluten causes inflammation in the body starting at the gut, but not finishing at the gut. So you can have a gluten sensitivity that might present itself as like a skin issue. And then inflammation in the gut lining can have long-term effects because of that inflammation, right? If you listen to my podcast number 5, it talks about inflammation, and that starts at the gut. And oftentimes it starts because your gut isn't healthy. So the gut lining is held together by these tight junctions. Each cell is really close together, kind of like a brick wall. The mortar between the brick is kind of what holds the brick together. So those tight junctions between each cell is what holds the cell together. When the mortar between the brick starts to break down, things leak through that wall, right? Like water can come through a brick wall if the mortar isn't sound, or if it's not tight, or if it's starting to degrade. And air can come through a brick wall for the same reason. So that the mortar between the brick wall has to be strong and leak-proof. So same thing happens in the gut. When the tight junctions between the cells break down, things leak through, kind of like a brick wall. So in the stomach, it's called increased intestinal permeability. It's easier just to say leaky gut. That's what leaky gut is. It's when the cells in your gut start to break apart because there's nothing holding them together. So you're getting holes in your gut, and that's not good. And also, gluten triggers the release of another protein called zonulin. And I don't expect you to memorize any of this, but zonulin is what breaks down that junction between the cell walls. So gluten will trigger zonulin. Zonulin breaks down the mortar, let's just call it the mortar, and then things start to leak through. Things that are not supposed to be there. Things that are not supposed to make it into your bloodstream. When things get into your bloodstream that aren't supposed to be there, then we have this inflammatory response because our immune system is going to get triggered to fight that off because it's not supposed to be there. Our body doesn't know what to do with it. This happens to everyone. This happens to anyone who eats gluten. So then why doesn't everyone have symptoms? Not everyone who eats gluten will have leaky gut, and not everyone who has leaky gut will have eaten gluten. There are a lot of other factors that can weaken the gut lining, like poor diet or stress. So many people have symptoms and they don't correlate it to the gluten. But that's the reason why it's the first thing to be eliminated in an elimination diet is get rid of that gluten, because it is really that sensitive to our body, and a lot of times we don't even know it. And we'll go over the symptoms in just a minute. So what's the difference between gluten sensitivity and celiac disease? So celiac disease is an actual autoimmune disorder that damages the small intestine lining if gluten is consumed. So you eat gluten and you have an autoimmune response, which means your body is sending its immune system out to attack its own body, the gut lining in this case. So people who have celiac disease, a lot of times it is seen earlier in childhood and then again later on in life. And a lot of times the celiac disease comes in various different sensitivities. So celiac disease is an actual autoimmune disorder. Gluten sensitivity does not trigger the autoimmune response, but a lot of times it does trigger the immune response, the inflammatory response, but it doesn't turn into an autoimmune response. And the symptoms can be similar. So then what are the symptoms? Well, the symptoms could be digestive issues like bloating, abdominal pain, diarrhea, constipation. It could be fatigue. It could be headaches or migraines, joint and muscle pain and stiffness. So for me, when I eat a pasta meal, I know that 2 nights later, not that night, but 2 nights later, I will not be able to sleep because my back will be so uncomfortable. And it took me years to figure out why I had back pain. You know, I had back pain. I've had back pain for many years, but when I cut out gluten, my back pain went away. And it didn't go away permanently because I have arthritis in my back, but it definitely took away my back pain. I'd have to say 95% of my back pain. And then now I just have like small flare-ups for other reasons. But yes, gluten causes joint and muscle pain and stiffness. It can cause brain fog, difficulty concentrating, memory problems. Remember, if it's an inflammatory process, then of course it's going to inflame the nerves as well. Again, what is our biggest nerve center in our body? It's our brain. So it makes sense that brain fog could be part of that, concentrating, memory problems, which could lead to other diseases, brain disorders down the line, right? And then skin issues like rashes and eczema-like symptoms. The body is trying to get rid of something, in this case, gluten. If the body's trying to get rid of something, it will get rid of things in whatever way it can. And we have 4 elimination organs. And one is through our GI system, our urinary system, our skin, and then breathing things out. And we're probably not going to breathe out our gluten, but of course we can try to get it out through our skin. So a lot of skin issues can be resolved by getting rid of gluten, all gluten. What else? Mood changes like anxiety, depression, irritability can be part of gluten sensitivity. Now that makes sense because our serotonin is made 80%, and I've heard statistics up as high as 95% of our serotonin that we need for our brain, it's made in our stomach. So if our stomach is not healthy, then imagine what it's doing to our brain. So yeah, mood changes can be part of gluten sensitivity, anxiety, depression, irritability. And then all this, if not resolved, can lead to autoimmune disorders. Not just celiac, but any autoimmune disorder. Because if your body is in a constant state of inflammation, it's going to eventually lead to other diseases. And if you have an autoimmune disorder already, chances are you're going to have other autoimmune disorders. If you get rid of inflammation, you can combat that for the most part. Not all of it, of course, but might as well do what you can, right? So those are some of the symptoms for gluten sensitivity. So then what can you do? Well, you can get tested for anti-gliadin antibodies. And the gliadin is one of the proteins in the endosperm of that wheat. And if you get an anti-gliadin antibody, that's the antibodies your body is building to fight off that gluten. So you can get tested for that. Or you can just cut it out of your diet. Cut what out of your diet, right? Because gluten is everywhere. You cut out all breads, all pastas, all baked goods, including bagels, English muffins, all muffins, cereals. Some oats have gluten. Oats do have gluten, but it's very, very, very little, barely detectable. But some oats, like in cereals, the gluten will be added. So just check that. You're not always safe just because it says oats. Same thing with corn. You can get corn tortillas. Corn tortillas don't have gluten in it, but check the package because sometimes they will put gluten in things randomly just as a binder or as a way to keep it sticky. So read all the labels. Because remember, gluten is a binder and a filler, and you can find it anywhere from your makeup to a salad dressing and even a delicious barbecue sauce. Just check the labels. Let's see what else. You can start with an elimination diet. So elimination diet pretty much eliminates everything that people have sensitivities to. And you can look that up online, what an elimination diet is, but it would eliminate all inflammatory. It's kind of like an anti-inflammatory diet, but even more so because the high sensitivity foods would be like the breads and the dairies and the eggs. People have high sensitivities to that, so it would eliminate that for a short time, and then you add things back in slowly to see if your body reacts. That's what the purpose of an elimination diet. And then you would repair your gut. You would repair your gut by eating fresh fruits and vegetables, because likely if you had leaky gut, you probably were not absorbing nutrients properly, and you probably are a little bit nutrient deficient. So fix that gut lining, add those nutrients back in. You can do that by supplementing with vitamins and minerals, or really just eating a good, healthy diet, like lots of colorful fruits and vegetables. So even in the Bible, Genesis 1:29, it says, "Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food." So that's what we are intended to eat. That is what is made for us. A lot of the probiotics are just high-fiber fruits and vegetables. So you can supplement with multivitamins, minerals, can supplement with vitamin D. Vitamin D is often low. However, make sure you get checked, get your labs done before you do that. Fish oils with EPA, DHA. So fish oils, or just eat 3 to 5 servings of fish a week. Probiotics would be a good thing to replace in your stomach. Probiotics are like a live bacteria, and I like it in the form of fermented foods like kefir, sauerkraut. Yogurt will have probiotics in it, or you can take supplements that have probiotics. And then you would need prebiotics. So probiotics feed on the prebiotics. So prebiotics are just high fiber foods. Some foods that are high in prebiotics are like chicory root, garlic, onions, bananas, asparagus, barley, apples. Just anything that's typically high fiber would be good. And high fiber foods are good in general for your health. So to answer the question, should you be gluten-free? I mean, you can probably make that determination for yourself, but I would say yes, of course. But there are other alternatives, right? I just pretty much cut out probably half your diet by just saying cut out breads, pastas, all that stuff, all the delicious stuff, right? But there are alternatives. So there are gluten-free breads. There are gluten-free pastas. You can get corn tortillas instead of flour tortillas. You can get sandwiches that are wrapped in lettuce instead of a bun or bread. Instead of a bagel or English muffin for breakfast, you can make eggs and veggies. And it's more important to get protein early in the day anyways. So eggs and veggies. You saute some vegetables up. That's actually a better breakfast for you anyways. To have carbs early in the day really isn't ideal. There are even gluten-free pizza crust. There's a lot of places these days that make a gluten-free pizza crust. So look for that. And if you're going to a restaurant and you're trying to be gluten-free, let the wait staff know that this is just a preference and it's not a life and death situation, because people who have celiac disease and they can't tolerate gluten at all, the kitchen will clean every surface and all the utensils and the pots and pans, and then they will make that gluten-free food. It takes a long time. So if you are not celiac and it's just a preference, make sure you let the wait staff know, and the cooks will keep it gluten-free, but they won't go through their whole protocol for being gluten-free, and that takes a lot of time for them and a lot of time for you to be waiting for your delicious food. So make sure you let the wait staff know. It's just a preference. It's not a life and death situation. So that's what gluten is all about. All right, so eat healthy, California. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you learned something new. Health care and treatment should focus on being proactive and preventative, emphasizing the importance of addressing the root cause of a disease or illness. While the U.S. has an excellent trauma medicine system, helping patients when problems arise, our goals should be to prevent disease before they happen. That's why this podcast is so important to me. If you're needing further guidance or have questions on a particular matter, you can find my contact information in the show notes, where you can set up a 15-minute consultation. I also recommend you adding a functional nutritionist, a functional medicine practitioner, and a physical therapist to your healthcare team. This podcast reflects my personal opinions based on extensive research and education. It is not intended for medical diagnosis or treatment and should never replace the advice from your doctor or other healthcare professionals. To continue providing this free information, I rely on your support. Follow, subscribe, like, and share this podcast with your family and friends, or on social media. Don't forget to turn on your notifications to stay updated whenever I have a new episode released. Educating you and empowering you to take back your health is my ultimate goal. By gathering knowledge and implementing small but impactful changes, you can reclaim your well-being. This is a journey, not a quick fix, so be kind to yourself, and I'll be there to help. You got this.